Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Fletcher. I'm a senior FME professional consultant at One Spatial, and today I'm going to be introducing you to some of the new and exciting formats that have been released as part of FME 2024. Integrating the latest and best formats into the FME ecosystem has always been a key part of SAFE's update ethos. Currently, there are over 450 compatible formats, and this list is growing every single year. It's the reason why we love FME Form as an ETL tool. In this screenshot here, you can see a current list, which I've taken from the FME website, and I've filtered it just to show you some 3D and CAD formats. And we can see a huge variety of different format types, which reflects the flexibility that FME has to connect to data wherever it is and in whatever formats. So from offline file-based formats such as Autodesk AutoCAD through to open source formats such as IFC and CityGML, and cloud applications such as Trimble Connect and OS Mastermap. They're all here and they're all available to you in FME to connect to your data. 2023 came with a whole bunch of very interesting updates to existing formats and introduced new formats to us as well. And looking at the hub, we see a lot of the material that has been released by SAFE and by the community associated with these new formats. So on the left, we see an example of some of the new documentation that SAFE release each time they release a new format. So this is the documentation for Databricks. Every format comes with its own documentation. And on the left, we see an example of some of the search results for the new formats that show what the community is doing with these formats on the Community Hub. And in this case, we're looking at Trimble data, which again is a new format to 2023. 2024 is of course no different, and there are a bunch of new formats and updates to existing formats that we think are going to be really exciting. So starting with the release of FME 2024.0 earlier on in the year, we were introduced to two new formats. So firstly, we have Apache Parquet Partitioned. This is an open source column-oriented data file format, and it's designed for efficient data storage and retrieval. FME has been able to read and write conventional Parquet files for a few years now. However, the new component and the updated reader allows FME to read partitioned files also. And partitioned files act in a very similar way to a fan out that we might use in FME, in that it takes a large data set and splits it into smaller, more manageable chunks. We also have an entirely new reader and writer for the Basis Universal format, and this is a super compressed raster format optimized for GPU processing and is entirely new to FME in 2024. Basis is tailored for professionals managing 3D datasets in geospatial gaming, virtual reality, and urban planning environments. In 2024.1, we also saw additional supports released for DuckDB, and this is a relational table-oriented database management system which supports structured query SQL language and is designed for very large, intensive analytical workloads. This new integration includes a native DuckDB reader and also includes the ability to submit queries to Duck databases via the SQL executor transformer. We also have a number of improvements to existing formats, again, where they've been expanded upon and new functionality has been added. So writing to Autodesk Revit files has been upgraded. We have a completely redesigned Revit writer. Previous versions of the Revit writer allowed us to write point features into Revit files, but this now includes some additional support for families, structures, and feature styling. If you're an enterprise geodatabase user in FME, you'll no doubt be familiar with managing SDE connections and trying to get them available to use in your FME environment. The system in which we connect and use SDE files has been completely regenerated, and these can now be imported as FME database connections, making them more portable and more user-friendly, and especially when you're trying to control them through FME Flow. We also have expanded functionality for STAC, And SCAC is a JSON-based metadata library that provides a common structure for describing and cataloging spatiotemporal assets. In other words, any file that represents information about the Earth captured at a certain space and time. In 2024, there is a new package containing the Stack Asset and Metadata readers. The metadata reader is new, the Stack Asset reader is existing, and the new Stack Asset, the new Stack Metadata reader enables FME to read the metadata properties from an asset catalog and also read more information into a workspace on its ancestor catalogs and collections. And finally, there is an updated IFC reader which now supports the latest IFC versions of 4.3 and above. And this has a simplified relational view to improve the readability and data management of your IFC files. There's additional enhanced support for new feature types and properties, along with better spatial reference system compatibility to ensure smoother integration with GIS applications. That is a whistle-stop tour of all of the new and improved formats in FME 2024 and 24.1. I will now hand over to my colleague Michael, who will be talking about some of the new transformers which have also been released this year.
Hi, my name is Michael Studdert. I have been with One Spatial for a bit over 4 years now, which is where I started my FME journey, and I am in the pre-sales department over in head office in the UK. So today I'm going to be talking about the new transformers that are in the new update, specifically the connector transformers. So we'll look at the Open API connector as well as the WebSocket connector. So starting with the API connector, it essentially allows you to import Open API specifications from a file. With FME, it's either a JSON or a YAML file. It would essentially automatically configure the transformer to call the endpoint that's within the JSON file you've brought in, and you're able to also preview your request within the transformer. So it just speeds things up and helps troubleshoot things, and if things aren't working, and also fragments your JSON tree within it so you can find your endpoint quite easy, and also for outputting the features. So we'll just have a little bit more of a look inside the connector. So you can see up here at the top, there's where you can specify or go to your file and find the JSON file. And as you can see on the left, it's got the tree, so you can see which endpoint you want to select. And then you'll have on the right here as well just the basic sort of details that come along with that endpoint. And it also has at the bottom as well a sample response. So it'll pick one of the responses and preview that for you to see if what you're trying to fetch is correct. And then you can see at the bottom there as well, there's the option to import them once you're happy with it. So once you do, it will take you back to the front, the homepage, or the transformer, and it will have all the details here of what your API is. So if you have an authentication, that will be up there where you can choose it, and it will allow you to put in a username and password. And then you'll also see here at the bottom, you can configure the output to either have your JSON fragment as features, which is usually the most optimal, but you can also save the entire response body if that's what you prefer. And then you'll also see here as well that you can send a test request. So again, that sort of helps things speed things up, but we'll have a little bit more of a look at that now as well. So you'll see here that within it, it will basically show you whether it's successful or whether it isn't. If it isn't, you'll see the errors here that they look like this. So it will tell you what's going wrong and just essentially allows you to troubleshoot this faster, and also means you don't have to run the workspace as well to start testing these connections. And just a good point to note as well is that this is also available now in the HTTP caller for similar functionality and yeah. So now we'll move on to the WebSocket connector. What this mainly does is that there was previously a WebSocket sender and receiver connected transformers, so there were two separate ones. If you were using them, you would notice that they were a little buggy, I would say. So this one definitely addresses that. It's a lot smoother to use and less stressful and painful. And if you're not really familiar with this particular transformer, I would say it works quite similarly to the HTTP caller. However, a really big difference is that you can stream data in this. So as data comes through and changes, it'll pick up on that straight away, but you can also return it in a batch as well, if that's what you prefer. So just looking into that again in more detail with a bit more of a real world situation. So you can see up here that we've got the server URL. So that's where you can put in and specify things. And then you can also see here that this is where you'll choose to either send or receive. And then you can see below whichever you choose will be available to put it in those details and gray the other one out. And then what you also see here is a connection preamble. So this works very much in with the headers and the query the query variables that you would see in the other connectors. So it allows you to filter what data that you're wanting to get when you connect to that URL and start streaming in the data. And yeah, that's pretty much all. There's not really much to it. So I appreciate you for listening and happy FME.
Thank you, Michael. So hello, everyone. In this presentation, I will be talking about the FME form interface improvements as part of the 5 hot features of FME 2024. Before we start, let me introduce myself first. I am Sam Cortero. I joined One Spatial August last year, so 1 year next month. I'm an FME user since last year when I started working here in Australia. Kind of new to the platform, but having background in data engineering and analysis, this software really excites me, and it's fun to use at least in my experience, especially processing spatial data. So prior to joining One Spatial, I have almost 3 years of experience in data science and retail industry, focusing on spatial analysis. So yeah, enough about me. Let's move on to the important part. So I think most of us are very much familiar with this look. So this is an example of the old workspace. In the next slide, we'll see the new workspace, how the new workspace looks like. So this is the new look. As you can see in terms of how it is being laid out, it is very much similar to the previous, but we can definitely see the visual difference, and we will talk about it in the next slides. For the first interface improvement, we have the canvas visual updates. So as you can see in the image, we have a much cleaner look of the canvas. The image in the right shows the updates. For example, readers and writers are updated as well as transformers. So transformer properties move to the transformer menu bar together with the run buttons and inspect buttons. So as you can see in the upper right part of the image, in the attribute manager, you can see that the transformer properties is included in the transformer menu bar together with the other buttons. We also have updates on errors. As you can see, it is easier to look at, especially when you are used to an error icon as your basis for errors. This is really helpful. And lastly, for the visual updates, so we have better visuals for missing dependencies. So it is now easier to check if there's something wrong. So the canvas now features a simplified user design, so that enhances and promotes interface consistency. So moving on. So for the next interface improvement, we have enhanced snapping guide. So FME 2024 improved visuals for the snapping guide. It is now more visible compared to the previous versions. So you can also hold shift to rail transformers movement in the horizontal or vertical directions. This update is really helpful when you are aiming to create a clean workspace it helps a lot in organizing the canvas with ease. So I remember when I was working in a project, even if the grids are on, the snapping tool sometimes fails. So this really helped a lot in organizing workspaces. So the next improvement will surely help the users in terms of efficiency. So we have updates on the schema preview window. So it now provides schema information in real time. So you can open the new window through View, Windows, and choose the schema preview. So as you can see, it now provides details on the attributes and geometry for selected canvas objects. As you click through the objects, it automatically updates the information being presented. So there's no need actually to cache features before inspecting the schema, which is very efficient. So yeah, now we will talk about improved desktop windowing. So we have an improved layout options for enhanced window and docking management. Pinning option is now available to hide windows when not in use automatically. So this will give you a better view of your canvas if that's what you prefer. You can now have a window setup presets for your layouts, so it can be saved and loaded and allows you to have a quick transitions between your favorite layouts. You also have drop-down options to select the layouts. Same with the last feature, this update also helps user to boost operational efficiency through canvas maximization and quick window configuration. And the last update for this FME form interface improvements is the multi-transformer upgrades. So this helps in performing bulk transformer upgrades, which saves time by upgrading multiple or all transformers simultaneously. And additionally, it creates workspace backups. So if anything goes wrong after the upgrade, you can always check the backups. It also generates upgrade report for bulk upgrades, detailing all successful and unsuccessful upgrades. So if anything goes wrong again, you can have a reference which you can use to investigate. So yeah, that ends my presentation. Thank you very much for listening and hope this topic excites you to use FME form. I will now hand it over to Anthony.
Thank you, Sam, for that interesting talk on FME form interface improvements. So before we get into my topic for this webinar, just a little bit about myself. My name's Anthony Hessling. I'm a One Spatial consultant in Australia. I've been with the company now for approximately 2 years, and I have used FME for a number of years, roughly 10, but still learning, as we all do. And in the industry, I've been around for about 35 years. So today I'm going to talk to you about what the hot security enhancements are, security updates that have come into FME 2024. So the first security update I want to talk about today is actually the way in which the connection storage is changed. If you're familiar with web and database connections, they're sort of a method of storing credentials in secure containers that FME can use. So effectively, instead of embedding your credentials, you put them in a container and you just have a workspace where, say, the container is called X. And FME knows how to go and retrieve this container, open it up and pluck out those credentials. In previous versions of FME, we had the concept of private connections versus public connections. Now, both of these used a key to encrypt it. With private connections, that key was not shared at all, but with public connections, you used a public key that could be shared, and you also denoted a path to share those connections on. However, from FME Form 2024 onwards, this is done a little differently. We have this idea of personal connections, which was what private used to be, and these don't use a key file at all. They actually use the operating system's encryption functionality, removing the need for a key file completely. We still have public connections, and these still use a key file, but it's managed by FME Form directly. and as such, only the shared location needs to be specified, not the file itself. So another improvement in security is the engine management aspect of FME Flow, because in FME 2024, what you'll actually find is a reworked console for engine management. It's reorganized to provide a good overview to view engines, queues, hosts, and streams. It's also has a dedicated engines page to view engine status, types, standard or CPU usage, and errors. The final topic under security, which I'm going to talk about today, is FME Flow security as a whole. So FME Flow security has improved system encryption in all the latest versions of FME Flow from 2023. The default system encryption setting, the standard one, applies a custom encryption key that is unique to the installation. Also, security can be enhanced by generating new custom encryption keys and applying them on a rotation basis. Importantly, it's important to be aware of when migrating or upgrading newer versions of FME Flow, as keys will need to be exported and restored. And this brings me to my last slide, a little bit of a plug about security in terms of safe software. So SAFE are making an increased effort to communicate security vulnerabilities. That's a good word to say. You can subscribe for notifications of security advisories direct from SAFE software. And there's the website that you can go to get all the information that you need on security from SAFE software. So thank you very much for listening to me today, and I'll now pass you over to Simon, who will give his short hot feature for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Hi everyone, my name's Simon Laird. I'm the Services Lead here at One Spatial in Australia. I've been using FME for quite a number of years within a few different organisations, and I really think it's a great tool to enable you to get the most from your data. I'm here to talk to you today about the AI Assist function that comes within FME Form 2024. So what this enables us to do is to quite quickly and easily build very powerful functions within a range of transformers. Firstly, to enable us to build regular expression statements, which are typically used for manipulating or extracting parts of strings. The second one is to build up SQL statements. So we might be using that to generate a SQL query to extract some data or to update some data from a database. And finally, it gives us a range of options for working with Python, whether it might be generating Python scripts or functions from scratch, or it might be helping us to document or understand what a Python script that we've been given does. So as you can see here on the video, what we can do is we can go into a range of transformers, and then we can use the AI Assist function to explain in plain English what we need to do. And then it goes away and it calls an AI service, and then it returns us what it thinks we're trying to achieve. So rather than trying to explain it here, we're now going to jump over and have a look at a demo in FME Form itself. Okay, so we've now switched over to look at a SQLite database I have here, which is a flat file database. Within this database, I have one single table called file list that we're looking at here. And what we have inside this is a list of file paths to images, and also a list of countries that these file paths relate to. As we can see, we've got a range of different file path structures. We have some that sit in a C drive location. We have some that are actually S3 bucket URLs. And we also have some that sit within a zip file. So we've got an image that sits within a zip file. And so what we're going to do in FME is we're going to validate which of these ones we can get to that relate to Australia. So what we're going to do now is switch over to FME Form. I've already gone ahead and created the first transformer, which is a SQL creator. And what I've done in here is pointed to my SQLite database. I have used the AI Assist to go and generate a very simple select statement to return all of the records from the file list table where country equals Australia. And I've also exposed the two attributes we have, file path and country. So as we can see here in the visual preview, we have 11 records returned and the file paths that sit with those. What we now want to do as we start to try and determine whether these file paths are valid is what we need to do is separate the images that sit directly on the disk or are directly in the URL with the ones that sit within a zip file. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a string searcher to actually return to us of these paths the path just up to the zip file. So not the full path with the image on the end. And what we're going to do within the string searcher is use a regular expression. So we're going to search within that file path attribute. And then we're going to use the AI Assist, which I'm going to bring up now to show you how we can do this. So if you were a regular expression user, you would probably be able to just punch in here your particular expression that you want to do to generate the file path you need. However, we're going to use the AI Assist to give us a leg up in this process. So in simple English, what we're going to do to use the AI Assist is just type in exactly what we want the regular expression to do. So I'm going to quickly type this out now. So we're going to create a regular expression that returns the file path up to the .zip. That's the important part in the path. And so that in plain English is what I would like our regular expression to do. So I'm going to hit generate. And what this is going to do is after we click through the prompt here warning us that it's sending our request off to a third-party service, it is going to go away and generate what it thinks that regular expression or regex string is. So what it's given back to us is a regular expression there. If you're unfamiliar with what they look like, that's one there that's going to return our file path up to and ending at the .zip. And what the AI service has also done is it's returned to us some test strings. And what these enable us to do is actually validate that our particular regular expression is working. So what I can do on the end of this is type in what we effectively have in our table is we have a zip path and then we have a image file name after that. So as you can see in the highlighted text there, that's what this regular expression is going to return, which is good. So we're going to hit apply on that. And as you can see, it's put in over here the regular expression we need in our test, which is good. So we're just going to hit OK on that. And as you can see here, it's searching in file path and it's going to return effectively the .zip path. So what we're also going to do now is change the attribute that it returns it to us in so that it goes into an attribute called file path just for consistency. So we've got that there. I'm going to show you now what that looks like when we run this particular string searcher. So it's matched 4 of our 11 features. So if we just have a look at the file paths that it's returned, great. So as you can see there, it's returned the file paths that contain the .zip and it's removed the image off the end. However, one, I guess, part here that we could make our workspace more efficient is that we are now going to proceed with checking that this path exists. We don't need to check the same path twice. So what we're actually going to use now is a duplicate filter to enable us to remove the duplicate in the file path. So what we're going to do using the duplicate filter is just filter based on file path. So if I show you that now, we should end up with 2 unique file paths, which we do. The other thing worth mentioning is out of the string searcher here, we have our not matched paths, which are actually the ones that do not contain a zip, which we can treat and use as they are. So the final part of this demo I'm going to show you now with the AI Assist is we're going to use a bit of Python to actually go and validate that these paths are valid and that they are accessible to me. So what we're going to do in here is pull up the AI Assist within a Python caller transformer. The Python AI Assist is a little bit more advanced than the SQL Creator or SQL Executor and the regular expressions AI Assist in that it enables us to generate or refine a Python snippet. to give us a description of it, or to actually go and add comments and documentation within our Python that we may already have. So what we're going to do in here, again in plain English, is put in our statement explaining what we would like. So we would like the AI function to create a new function that tests if file path, key attribute there to have spelled correctly. Attribute is a file or a URL, and then tests if the path is valid and writes the results to a new attribute called path check. So we're going to hit generate, and we're going to click through the warning again. I'm happy for that to be sent off to the third-party service. We're going to wait a moment for it to return a result to us, and then we're going to have a quick look at that, but we're pretty much going to accept what it returns as is. So as you can see here, it's given us an explanation for what's returned as well as the Python snippet, which is great. It looks like it should work. I'm going to hit apply, and I'm going to use it as it is. As you can see, that's dropped in our function. The one thing we're going to do before we run it is we're going to expose the path check attribute, and that's the attribute that we're expecting that this piece of Python will return to us. So quickly, before I hit run on that Python call, I'm just going to explain again what we've got. Up out of the duplicate filter, we've got the 2 zip file paths that have been deduplicated and had the image removed from the file path. And then at the bottom, out of the not matched port of the string searcher, we have our file paths that are to an image directly. So we've got 9 in total. So let's hit run on this Python caller and see what it returns to us in the visual preview. So I'm going to hit inspect on that. I am just going to sort by path check, and let's talk through this results. So at the top there, you can see the first 4, what it's returned to us is invalid path. And the reason that's returned that is because if you can't tell, I'm actually using a Mac in this demo. These file path structures are Windows file path structures, so they're invalid for the actual machine I'm running on. For the next 2, we can see that it's determined that they are a URL, which is good. And then finally, we have the final 3 where it's determined that these are valid file paths. So that's great. What we can do now is in the remainder of this particular example, we can use this path check result to filter out the invalid paths and then continue working with our data. So on that, I'm going to wrap up this demo, and I'm going to pass it back to the team for Q&A.